to remember, and it'll be a good example of just writing a bash script. If you've never written one before, it'll be a good experience. So here's what we want to do. We're going to close the Cygwin terminal, and we may as well close that window, and we'll bring up Visual Studio Code. And if yours doesn't, if you've followed along the previous video we walked through, and maybe I should just bring that up real quick. Okay, so here's my channel, my videos, and the previous video here, how to use Cygwin, Cygwin's bash as a shell within Visual Studio. If you haven't walked through that and installing Visual Studio Code, you'll want to do that. Might help you to go through those first and then come back to this video. So here I'm going to close this just in case you don't have that. And from the previous video we did Control-Shift-T, and now we've got Cygwin bash in the terminal. And one thing I found out is how to move it over to the right here, and I'm going to do that now by doing Control-Shift-P, and then if you type in panel, and see how it says move panel right? I'm going to select that, and now we've got the panel over here for the terminal, and that'll be a little easier because what we're going to do is we're going to write our script on this side of the screen, and then we can use the Cygwin terminal on this side. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to create a script that's going to wrap, it's going to be this wrapper around the Cygwin executable for the install and remove of programs or packages. And the what we're going to do is we're going to create a directory, a bin directory here, make dir bin, and in this directory we're going to create a symbolic link that's going to basically effectively, in a way, make the Cygwin installer available from the bin directory. And so this might not make sense right now, but let's just walk through it here with me, and then in no time it'll start to make sense. So to create a symbolic link, we type in ln-s, and we're going to reference that location where the installer is. Just like that, setup there. So we want ln-s, and as you type this through here, if you hit tab on each step, you'll make sure that you got that correct. See how I hit tab and it will suggest setup, and yes, that's correct. When you hit enter and you type in ls-al, that's just sort of a habit here, but you could type in ls. You'll notice that we have setup-x86, right? The executable. If I do ls-al, it gives me more information, and you can see how this shows that this is there's an L here, and that's for a link. And you can see the link name, setup, is pointing to the actual location where the actual file is. And then so from the bin directory, I can specify that setup direct instead of having to go instead of having to cd all the way over here, I can just cd into bin, and then I can run the executable from there. Right? So we'll cancel that though. Now, so if we go back to our home directory, so that I did a cd tilde goes back to home, and if we do pwd, shows us where we are currently, and we've got our bin directory, I can run the executable like this, right? But what would be nice is can I run that? I'd like to be able to run that no matter where I am. I don't want to have to reference it directly to run it. And what that means is we need to get the bin directory on our path. If we echo the path out, the path is a list of directories that the system will traverse looking for an executable. And so right now, if I type in setup x86, oops, 64.exe, right? It says command not found. And why is that? Because it couldn't find it in these lists, in this list. And so the question is, how do I add that on there? How do I add our bin directory on there? So I could do a export path, or I could just set, we could just do path equals, and we can do $home bin, and then $path. And now if I do, if I type in setup, you'll notice that it auto-completes there because it knows it went and found it on that bin directory. And when I hit enter, right, it starts up the executable. We'll cancel that. So the thing is, though, how do we make that permanent? How do we add bin on the path permanently? If I exit out of this shell, and I go Control-Shift-T, and so now if I do, if I echo path to show the environment variable, it's got user local bin, user bin, but it doesn't have the home bin on there. So the one way to change that is you'll notice here in your home directory, you have something called the bash profile. And in order to edit that, we're going to type in code. Now code actually refers to Visual Studio Code. Actually, it might be interesting to do this. Which code? You see where now it shows us, this is the path to the code directory, or to the code binary, which is under bin Microsoft VS Code programs, right? So code, that's the name of the executable to launch Visual Studio Code. If we type in code and then we give it the name of a file, like .bash profile, watch what happens. I'll hit enter. And now you'll notice on the left, we've loaded up the .bash profile. And the people that develop Cygwin and distribute it have quite a bit of information in here to help you out if you want to learn more about it. But what I want to focus on here for you is this section. It says set path, so it includes the user's private bin if it exists. And so we do have it, right? We know that it exists. And I'm going to uncomment this, just like that. And now when we save it, we're going to have to load the terminal again, or you could just type source.bash profile. And now when we echo path, you'll notice, before it started with user local bin, but now we've got home John bin, right? So what's really nice about that now is when we type setup -x and I hit tab, it auto-completes, it's found that executable on the path, and if we hit enter, now it launches the GUI. And we'll cancel that now, because now we're at the beginning here. I'm going to clear this. And actually maybe just to prove it, I'm going to exit out of the terminal, and I'm going to go Control-Shift-T. Let's launch that again. And if I echo path, you'll notice home John bin is still there. And that's because we uncommented it in the .bash profile. That file gets read and executed each time your terminal is launched. Okay, so now we can close the bash profile. And we're going to go into the bin. We're going to cd into bin. And so now we've got the setup x86 here, and this is some logging that the executable spits out, so you can just ignore that for now. We want to create a wrapper, a shell script to wrap the executable, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to type in code, and I think we're going to call it cyg, code sig, okay? And on the left hand side is the editor now has brought up this file, and what we're going to start off with on the very first line, see where it says line 1 here, we're going to add in a pound, exclamation point, and we're going to specify bin bash. That tells the system that we want to use bash to interpret this script. And I'm going to Control S to save it. And there's a couple things we want to do. If you look down here, maybe I'll leave that, but select plain text and type in shell there for shell script. And then now you'll notice that that changed color, and now we have some syntax highlighting on the script here. If I had closed this and I launched that again, it would know, by reading that, it would know that that's a shell script, and it would choose the color. Okay, so we're writing a shell script, and let's type in echo hello, and we'll save that. And on this, in the terminal here, let's see the file cyg, right? And you'll notice that here we got execute permissions on all. I think that's user group other, or owner group, user group other. I think that's right. So anyway, the executable bit is set for each. And if I try to run cig, you'll notice that you get this line here, /r command not found. What you want to do, it's really important here while we're developing. See where it says CRLF? That's carriage return line feed. We want to select what kind of end of lines we want to use, and new lines in Unix are different than new lines in DOS. In DOS or Windows, in the Windows world, you have a carriage return and a line feed. What we want is just the line feed, right? So then you might have to save that again. And then if we hit the up arrow, you'll notice here, this time it ran and it said hello. Okay, so now what do we want to do here? So we could leave a comment, a wrapper to streamline installing and removing Cygwin packages. Okay, and save that. Let's see, what's the first thing we want to do? We want to make sure that, I'm sort of thinking that if we have cig, I'd like to be able to say cig install and then say git, right? That's how I would like to see it. And if we wanted to remove it, it would just be remove git. So let's set up what's called a case statement here. If we do case $1, so $1 is going to be the first parameter, like this. So $1 will be either install or remove. So case 1 in, oops, let's try install here, and then what we'll do is we'll echo this will run the install, and then to end that section you just put 2 semicolons, and then on the next line we'll put remove and echo this will run the remove, and we'll end that section. And finally we'll add a star so that if it doesn't match these, what do we want to say? Okay, we want to say something like usage cig, and then this will be an option cig install remove, and then something like packages, something like that. And let's see here. And then to finish a case, oops, to finish the case statement, you spell case backwards. So that's how you finish that. And then just for good measure here, we'll exit with a return code of 1, which means that there was an error. So now we will, let's try running this now, cig. So now it says usage. If I say cig install, this will run the install. And if I do cig remove, this will run the remove. Okay, so now we need to look at, okay, what were the commands for actually installing? So that, well, the install, first of all, we have the setup. We need to refer to the setup. So let's go up here and we'll type in Cygwin installer. We're going to set this variable to the name of the installer. And actually, it'll be the command that we want to run. So let's type in $, or actually might not have to refer to that because it's on the path. Let's do setup x8664.exe, and let's just run that here for a second, and we want to list the help. So we know that we want it to run it in quiet mode, and whenever you're referring to a program running from a script, don't refer to the short arguments. Like if you're using that on the command line just yourself, that's certainly appropriate to save you time from typing it all out. But if you're referencing it in a script, here, I'll just copy that. It's better to use the full command that way. That way it's more self-documenting. It's easier to relate to. It's like, oh yeah, quiet mode. And then whether or not we use it for install or remove, we're always going to want to use Cygwin installer like this with quiet mode. So now let's refer to this down here. We'll type in Cygwin installer, and then if I add another command line argument, we want, what is it here now? Packages. So we'll do -- packages, and then what the next command line argument, if $1 is install or remove, then $2 will be the actual packages, right? So let's actually take a look at that. Well, let's just keep going here for a second. And then let's run the Cygwin installer like this, right? So the Cygwin installer refers to this, and then we add the packages. But for the remove, what do we want? We don't want packages, we want remove packages. You notice here, right there, remove packages. So now let's save that, and let's try this. If we do which git, there's no git. So let's do cig install, and then we'll specify git. And you can see that it's installing git. When you use the command line, it always uses the most recent version, and I did look into that. The command line doesn't offer an option for specifying the version, unfortunately. So if you do want the version, at least what's available from the installer, you have to use the GUI to get it. Okay, so now if we do which git, you'll see user bin git -- version. So we have that installed. So now let's try removing that package, right? So if we do cig remove git and keep our fingers crossed. Now it's uninstalling git. And that appears to be finished. And if we do which git, right, it says no git, and this shows in the path it can't find it. It's been uninstalled. So that's quite an improvement. You could write in checks to see if the user had specified any packages, and then maybe you know, echo out this usage message again. But this gives you an idea of how you can use a shell script to make your life easier in your day-to-day activities interacting with the system. Maybe we'll add one more. It'd be kind of nice to be able to add in a search, to be able to search for packages. So there's this program Cygwin comes with called cygcheck. And if I type in -h, cygcheck, it says here, yeah, package query, search for a regular expression in the entire cygwin.com package repository. And so actually what that is, let's quickly bring this up. Search for Cygwin, and there's this search packages at Cygwin. And say you want to search for PHP. And you can see it comes back with this huge list. It's not the most helpful. Maybe if you used a regular expression. I did mess around with that a little bit, but it didn't seem that helpful to narrow down this list. But I did notice that, you know, I mean, it's got like tons of packages that have some sort of reference to PHP. But notice that if the package name ends with like say it's got the actual name of the software package, but then the actual name of just the simple name, and then it's followed by a colon. So if you did a search for PHP colon, you can see here that you've got a much smaller list, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to install. And so you could go to the web here, do the search, and then go back to the command line, and you could do cig install PHP. I mean, PHP might be kind of an obvious example, but there might be a package name out there that you don't quite know if Cygwin even has it. So you could go out, you know, to the internet here, go to the website, do the search, or you could use this cygcheck. So if we did it, let's see here, cygcheck-l, sorry, -p. So we want to do this package query. And if we do PHP, it goes out and gets that list, right? And similarly to how I was saying there, if you did a search for PHP with a colon, you get that shorter list. So one thing I think would be kind of cool is to add that search to our cig script here. So how would you do that? Well, you would just simply add in another section here in the case statement, search, and we would just type in cygcheck, right? And what was it? Let's see, cygcheck, let's do -h. So yeah, let's make sure that we reference the full command here, the full argument name. Control C. And then we'll just add in $2, right? So that's what it'll search for. And we'll end the section with a couple semicolons. We'll save it. And let's just clear that. Let's go back to the home directory. And so now if we type in cig search PHP, comes back, you know, like that huge list again. Or we could do this search for PHP colon, right? Or, you know, say we wanted to look for wget. There's a whole bunch there too. Add in the colon, and that's a little bit there, right? So yeah, that's the one we want. And we don't have that installed, so we could go ahead, you know, cig install wget, and actually let's do multiples. Do we have git? We don't have git, right? So let's do cig install wget, comma git, comma PHP. And now, so if I do a which PHP, there it is, which git, which wget, yeah, they're installed. PHP, let's do PHP-h. Let's see here, -s, run with a built-in web server. So if we just run php-s localhost 9000, and you can see that it's running. If we bring up our browser and do http localhost 9000, there you can see that actually PHP is running now, and you can see how easy that was. I can do Control-C, and then again, finally to uninstall, right? Sig remove, and yeah, we want to get rid of wget, git php, and again, which git, no, which php, oops, php, which wget, they're all uninstalled. So I think that will wrap up this video. You can see now that we've got you can see how handy it is to be able to write a shell script to sort of be this wrapper around these commands, right? So it makes something that was quite cumbersome a lot more straightforward and helpful. And that's something that as a programmer, you want to leverage those sorts of things to make your life easier. So I think that was a pretty good example of that. And now you have something really useful for going forward with Cygwin.